In 2009, the indie game scene would begin to burst with games like Cave Story, Serious Sam, World of Goo, Dwarf Fortress, and Infiniminer. These games would go on to inspire others to make their own independent games, perhaps most famously Toby Fox. But this isn't about him. No, today we're talking about the story of Marcus Notch Persson and the little-known game that he created and its struggles to release. I suppose some backstory is necessary in order to understand Persson's creation. He was an aspiring game developer who worked on his own indie games, although a lot of them would ultimately not go anywhere. Perhaps a good example is Worm Online, which was considered too ambitious for its time. Although sometime after, he began work on a game called Ruby Dung. Although the game was scrapped instantly as it was so badly made, it tragically killed Persson's brother Brian. Not long after Ruby Dung was scrapped, though, he began work on a new game inspired by Infiniminer, Dwarf Fortress, and Roller Coaster Tycoon, a game he dubbed Cave Game.
Oh, that's real f***ing original.
Persson would post updates about his game on forums and chat rooms, and would even upload early footage of the game to YouTube. Now here's the kicker. Nobody liked his game. In fact, people would constantly complain to him, which filled Persson with rage, but ultimately, he never let that get in the way of his work and would continue on Cave Game well into the 2010s. Sometime after, Persson had made his game into something that he could truly love and renamed it to Minecraft because, well, you know, first you mine, then you craft, Minecraft. There was just one problem. People still hated the game and nobody bought it, which devastated Persson. Even those who did play it reported bloody noses and headaches from playing the poorly made piece of shit. But hey, at least it didn't kill anyone this time. Yet. It seemed Persson's dream had died, and thus he decided to go back to what he knew best, being the most supportive ally of the transgender movement. Seriously, as a transgender myself, thank you, Persson, for donating your parents' retirement fund to our cause so that I can continue to indoctrinate more children. You're someone who truly gets it. Then one day, a miracle happened, and Persson was approached by a bunch of weirdos calling themselves Other Ocean Interactive, who found themselves so captivated by Persson's vision and offered to bring that vision to life, but like with actual good coding that wouldn't make Yandere Dev blush with how bad it was. This meant that the game would also be brought to consoles, which would mean more people could play it. However, both Sony and Microsoft rejected the idea of such an awful game coming to their platforms, which left only one option. Upon approaching Nintendo, they were very hesitant to allow the game to come to their systems, mainly the Wii U and Switch. However, they did offer them a 3DS dev kit to at least try and port the game to, but also so that they could leave the office because, and I quote, this is a genuine quote, I'm not kidding, "Those guys stank to high hell like they had bathed in nothing but coyote urine for the past 2 weeks, Satoru Iwata. Thus, Other Ocean began to work with Persson to bring his vision to the Nintendo 3DS. Well, actually, you see, the game was so poorly optimized that the better processor of the new Nintendo 3DS was needed for the game to run at all, and to give them credit, when the game did come out on September 13th, 2017, it actually was very competently made. Yeah, it was lacking some promised features, but the fact that the game could run was so impressive that even Steve Wozniak approached Other Ocean with the proposition of bringing the game to the then upcoming AT&T gaming router. The problem started to arise though after development, as Persson would continue to develop the game on his own accord, and this would make the game less and less stable over time. Like, this got so bad to a point where this is the only game I have ever seen crash my 3DS, like hard crash it. Eventually, someone decided that the plug needed to be pulled, and Minecraft New Nintendo 3DS Edition was discontinued on January 15th, 2019, with plenty of promised features such as 3D support missing. Some recall Minecraft on 3DS as a bit of a weird game that, while they did enjoy it, other, more better games today tend to outshine it, such as Roblox, Bokopia, and Cube Life Island Survival. Well, it has been nearly 9 years since this whole thing happened, so why don't we go back in time and take a look at why Minecraft was a failed experiment. Alright, so first things first, creating a world of which you can only do a limited number of. The reason is because the game saves to the SD card and not the internal storage or the game card itself, although Then again, now that I think about it, my 3DS does have a 256 gigabyte micro SD, so it doesn't make sense now that I think about it. Anyway, you do get multiple world sizes to choose from at least, but I'll tell you right now, it doesn't matter what you pick because the more you play in your world, the less stable the game is gonna get. Yeah, I gotta be honest, that's a really big red flag for me. You know how some Bethesda games on PS3 like Fallout New Vegas and Skyrim have that issue where the longer you play on your save file, the less stable the game gets? Well, that same issue exists here, but is sped up tenfold because of the 3DS hardware. If you play on a world for, say, more than 10 hours, expect frequent FPS drops and crashes. So what makes Minecraft on 3DS so special? Well, for starters, you have local co-op. The catch is that it's only local, something that I'm sure back in 2017 was feasible, but in 2026, who the fuck are you gonna find with their own 3DS and their very own copy of this game? Yeah, it doesn't even use DS download play, they have to have their own hard copy of the game. But then again, this also had to be patched in with an update, so yeah, maybe asking for more is a little too much than what the poor 3DS can handle. As for the gameplay itself, well, you mine, you build, you survive the hordes of monsters that the game will throw at you. There are different biomes that you can come across, but because this game was so poorly made, you can generate a world with only 3 or 4 biomes in it because the biomes are huge. It's like the game was intended to have larger worlds, but they had to limit them because of the limitations of the hardware, and then forgot to actually adjust the biome scales like a bunch of morons. This does also mean that you can generate a world and never see certain structures. Villages are probably a guarantee, but woodland mansions to get the totems of undying? Yeah, you just aren't seeing those unless you get lucky enough to generate a world with a biome that just so happens to be a dark oak forest. Now, something that you might notice is that the bottom screen displays your hotbar and a map. Now, personally, I would have preferred that my inventory is displayed on the bottom screen at all times for live item swapping like in Wind Waker HD. But I mean, hey, I'll take what I get, and this map feature is pretty nice if it fucking functioned properly. Yes, in another instance of this game's god-awful code, the map also has issues just filling in. I mean, just look at it. Look at how jank it looks as I move around and fill in the map. And what's funny is that the original release of this game didn't do this, and it worked as intended. Yeah, I suppose that's something that we should talk about. Minecraft got more and more unstable as it got updated, which is like the opposite of what's supposed to happen, right? When the game launched, yeah, it felt very feature incomplete, but they at least had a good baseline to work off of for the 3DS game. But with each update that added more content, the game would just break more and more with new bugs being introduced that would never get addressed or fixed. Slots of your hotbar can just stop working, dead pixels can appear on the menus, which is visually distracting, the game will stutter while its logic continues, and you better hope that doesn't happen near a hostile mob or else goddamn! Entire chunks of the world can just refuse to load, leaving these void pits that go all the way down to the bottom of the world, which already isn't that good, since this game's render distance is piss poor at best. So from what I remember, this game has a render distance of about 4 16 by 16 chunks that can be displayed in front of you at all times, with that last chunk being where the fog settles in. Unless you manage to disable it, because yes, that can also happen. But this means that you got a maximum of like 64 blocks that you can see out directly in front of you. Combine this with the 3DS's piss poor resolution of 240p, and you aren't seeing shit. In case it isn't obvious, I'm emulating this so that I can actually, see, but even then, this only does so much to help. I feel like this shouldn't have been on the 3DS. Like, don't get me wrong, I love this system to death. It is hands down my favorite handheld console of all time. But this clearly wasn't meant to be made for it. In fact, from what I've heard through the grapevine, this was actually based on a scrapped Android and iOS port of the game that had infinite worlds, yet for some reason, instead of reworking the code to actually cooperate with the 3DS hardware, they just said fuck it and did the bare minimum. That's what this is. It is a bare minimum port job of a game. This game did get DLC, but good fucking luck getting that nowadays with the eShop dead. There was this Mario mashup pack, which is cool, but To put this in perspective of how this game runs, this Mario statue drags the game down to a crawl. I genuinely wonder who thought that this was a good idea, because as it stands, avoid this at all costs. Just playing this game caused me physical trauma. At the end of the day, there is some kind of semblance of a good game buried underneath all of this shit. The issue is the hardware that it's on and the time of which it was released. 2017, the fucking Switch was out by this point, and could have done this game so much better on that system. Truth be told, I think literally anything would have been better. Apple and Android devices, PlayStation Vita, the Switch, hell, even the fucking Wii U would have been much better for this game. Unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be, and the 3DS would serve as Minecraft's grave. Suffice to say, by 2019, Person's dream was dead. The partnership with Wozniak fell through, and Other Ocean would go on to make Game of the Year every year, Rick and Morty Virtual Reality. As for Person himself, well, as it turns out, he had actually invested quite a lot into Other Ocean's stock, and when they exploded in popularity from their Rick and Morty game, Person's investments in the company went through the fucking roof, and he would end up selling his stocks for $1 quintillion, making him the richest man on Earth. Rumor has it that the man is attempting to make a new game that... Oh, hang on, I'm getting a call. Vader! How's my favorite Sith? Whoa, okay, slow down. Huh? What do you mean a second Minecraft hit the North Tower?